Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Torah time. We are back in Leviticus chapter 17. And we're catching up with everybody, and then we'll get back to the Gospel of Luke a little bit later on this week. Thank you for joining us, and let's pray and get started. O Yehovah, the great and awesome God of our fathers, we thank you so much for this excellent day. Thank you for giving us rest, helping us to work hard, and blessing the work of our hands. We love you and thank you for every wonderful thing that you have done for us. We pray that you will keep us on the right path. Teach us your ways that we might walk in them. Help us to understand your word as we read it today and place it upon our hearts that we might remember it and keep it. In the name of our Messiah, Yeshua, we ask these things. Amen. So, here we have some interesting commandments from our God regarding blood and sex. Yeah. Are you ready? Here we go. Yehovah said to Moses, speak to Aaron and his sons and to all the Israelites and say this to them. This is what Yehovah has commanded. Any Israelite who sacrifices an ox, a lamb, or a goat in the camp or outside of it, instead of bringing it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to present it as an offering to Yehovah in front of the tabernacle of Yehovah, that man shall be considered guilty of bloodshed. He has shed blood and must be cut off from his people. This is so the Israelites will bring to Yehovah the sacrifices they are now making in the open fields. They must bring them to the priest, that is, to Yehovah, at the entrance to the tent of meeting, and sacrifice them as fellowship offerings. The priest is to sprinkle the blood against the altar of Yehovah at the tent of meeting at the entrance, and burn the fat as an aroma that is pleasing to Yehovah. They must no longer offer any of their sacrifices to the goat idols to whom they prostitute themselves. This is to be a lasting ordinance for them and for their generations to come. Now, this is where it's basically telling us, and this is why you can't just go out in your backyard and build an altar and say, I'm going to sacrifice this animal, even if it was the right animal and you sacrificed it the right way and you offered it as a sacrifice to God on an altar that you built in your backyard. God considers that as you sacrificing to a goat demon. Seriously. He's like, you will not offer everybody, building altars all over the land and, offering sacrifices in your backyard. That is why we do not have an altar in our backyard where we sacrifice to Yehovah, because he said, look.
Still, if we did that.
That would be like sacrificing to goat demons. He says, if you want to offer sacrifices to me, you have to do it in the place that I have set up. Now, the reason is, let me ask you this. If everybody's backyard is a holy place, and holy means separate and special, what is really holy and special?
Is nothing.
Nothing. If there's a holy place everywhere, then it's not really holy. If every day is a Sabbath, wouldn't that kind of mean there's no such thing as a Sabbath?
Yeah.
Because the Sabbath day is holy because it is special and different from all the other days. So if you have altars and people offering sacrifices to God all over the land, A, you've got a problem of it's no longer holy, it's no longer special and unique, and B, who knows what rules and procedures they're going to follow. There's nobody that is like in charge. Every man is going to do whatever he thinks is right. and he may mess it up and offer it the wrong way and offer it in ignorance or offer it even in sin. And so he's saying, look, you cannot do that. If you're going to do it, there's going to be one altar. Now, they had an altar with them in the wilderness, and they took it with them, but there was only one. But apparently there were some who were deciding, oh, let's make a little altar in the backyard. He was like, no. So now he says, say to them, any Israelite or any alien living among them who offers a burnt offering or sacrifice and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to sanctify it to Yehovah, that man must be cut off from his people. Any Israelite or any alien living among them who eats any blood, I will set my face against that person who eats blood, and will cut him off from his people. For the life of a creature is in the blood, and I have given it to you to make atonement for yourselves on the altar. It is the blood that makes atonement for one's life. Therefore I say to the Israelites, none of you may eat blood, nor may an alien living among you eat any blood. Now here's the thing about this, is that God is saying, you can kill and eat animals. That is not a problem. But you may not take its blood. That animal is giving up its life so that you can eat. But its life is in its blood. You do not have a right over that. You have a right over its flesh to eat it, but you may not take its blood. The blood is special. Now we would, on our day, think eating blood? That's disgusting. Nobody eats blood. But you know what? People did for a long time in history. Blood pudding, blood soup. Yucky.
Ew.
Yeah.
Who would do that? It tastes really terrible.
Lots of pagans did that, and it is disgusting. But they thought that, they had a ritual where they thought, if we not just eat the flesh of the animal, but drink its blood, we'll take the power of that animal and take it into our bodies, and we'll become more powerful. So, yeah, they thought they were doing some kind of weird magic. And God said, I will destroy you for that. So then he says, any Israelite or any alien living among you who hunts any animal or bird that may be eaten must drain out the blood into the earth, because the life of every creature is in its blood. That is why I have said to the Israelites, you must not eat the blood of any creature, because the life of every creature is in its blood. Anyone who eats it must be cut off. Anyone, whether native-born or an alien who lives among you, who eats anything found dead or torn by wild animals, must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be ceremonially unclean until evening. Then he will be clean. But if he does not wash his clothes and bathe himself, he will be held responsible. So he says, if you find a dead animal, that's really not a good idea to eat an animal that you found dead and you didn't kill it yourself. Why do you think that might be? What killed?
Because you don't know what killed it. It could have been something dirty.
It could have been diseased. Yep, it could be a diseased animal or sick animal that if you eat it, you get sick. So he did make a provision if you found an animal that maybe had been attacked by a wild animal, and you know that it was just attacked by a wild animal, then you may eat it, but you will be, you can't go into the temple until the following day, because you might be unclean. And now he says, Yehovah said to Moses, I want you to tell the Israelites this, I am Yehovah, your Elohim. You must not do like they do in Egypt, where you used to live. And you must not do as they do in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. Do not follow what they do. You must obey my laws and be careful to follow my instructions. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. Keep my instructions and laws, for the man who obeys them will live because of them. I am Yehovah. No one is to go close to any relative to have sexual relations. I am Yehovah. So it says if you can't marry and have sex with your sister or your aunt or your uncle or your cousin. Do not dishonor your father by having sexual relations with your mother. That is just wildly crazy. She is your mother. Do not have relations with her. Do not have sexual relationships with your father's wife, even though it's not your mother. Let's say your mother died and your father married a new wife. You can't have sex with her either. That's disgusting. Do not have sexual relations with your sister, either your father's daughter or your mother's daughter, like a half-sister, whether she was born in the same home or not. Do not have sexual relations with your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter. So basically, he's going to give you a whole bunch of relationships, examples, like you cannot have sex and marry anyone who is related to you.
So it has to be some random person that you don't know.
Yeah, it could be someone from another tribe next door, or some family that lives down the road, or something like that. But you can't marry your sister or your cousin or your mother or your dad's wife or your nothing like your half sister or your stepsister. You can't do that. So then he says,
how is that bad?
How is that bad? That's an excellent question. And what we do know is that those relationships that you have with your family members is different than the relationship a husband and a wife would have and have sex. And that's A. B, we also know that science has shown us that if a brother and a sister have sex and have a child, because the molecules and the DNA and the instruction manual inside of their bodies is from the same type, they can and oftentimes will produce a child that is like retarded.
Two heads, something like that.
Yeah, it's an abomination. So that is a sign from God, and that has happened plenty of times where the child born of a improper relationship will be messed up. So there's a medical, scientific reason for it, but there's also a spiritual reason for it, which is these relationships are where you love each other and support each other, but it does not become intimate sexually. You don't marry your sister. Now he says, like your wife's sister, you can't have a rivalry between wives and you'd have sexual relations with her. Do not go towards a woman to have sexual relations with her during the time when her blood is flowing to wash out those old eggs. Remember we talked about that? Do not have sexual relationships with your neighbor's wife and defile yourself. That's called adultery. Not only will you get in huge trouble with God, but the guy whose wife you had sex with is liable to kill you because you took his wife. You're messing with another man's wife, and you can easily die that way. Do not give any of your children to be sacrificed to any strange god like Molech, for you must not destroy the name of your God. I am Jehovah. Do not lie with a man as one lies with a woman. That means a man cannot have sex with a man. That is disgusting and detestable. Do not have sexual relations with an animal and defile yourself. That is even worse. A woman must not present herself to an animal to have sex with it. That is a perversion. Do not destroy yourselves in any of those ways, because this is how the nations that I am going to drive out in front of you have become defiled. Even the land where they live has been defiled by them. So I punished them for their sins, and the land vomited or puked out its people who live there. You must keep my instructions and my laws. The native born and the aliens living among you must not do any of these disgusting things, for all these things are done by the people who lived in the land before you, and the land became polluted. And if you defile the land, it will puke you out, just as it puked out the people who lived there before you. Everyone who does any of these things, these detestable, disgusting things, these persons must be cut off from the people. Keep my requirements, and do not follow any of the detestable things that were done before you came here, and do not defile yourselves with them. I am Jehovah, your Elohim.
You said persons.
Yeah.
People.
People, persons, it's the same thing. It's a valid word. So, you may not have sex with someone who's related to you. Boys may not have sex with boys. Girls may not have sex with girls. And definitely no animals. Does that make total sense?
Yeah.
Very simple. Good.
That sounds simple.
Yes, it's very simple. And now Yehovah spoke to Moses and said, I want you to tell the entire congregation of Israel this. Be holy yourselves, because I, Yehovah, your Elohim, am holy. Each of you must respect his mother and father, and you must observe my Sabbath days. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. Do not turn to idols or make gods out of metal for yourselves. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. When you sacrifice a fellowship offering to Yehovah, sacrifice it in such a way that it will be accepted. It shall be eaten on the day you sacrificed it, or on the next day. Anything left over until the third day must be burned up. If any of it is eaten on the third day, it is impure and will not be accepted, probably because it's rotten. Because they didn't have refrigerators in those days. Whoever eats it will be held responsible because he has desecrated or messed up, defiled what is holy to Yehovah. That person must be cut off from his people. When you go out to gather the fruit of the harvest of your land, do not gather all of it to the very edges of your field. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You must gather together the gleanings of your harvest. You do not go over your vineyard or your harvest a second time to pick every piece of fruit that you can possibly get. You must leave some on the edges for the poor and the stranger who is living in your land. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. Do not steal or take something that does not belong to you. Do not lie. Do not try to deceive one another. Do not swear falsely by my name. That means if someone asks you, are you telling the truth? And you say, I swear by the name of my God, Yehovah, and you're lying, uh-oh. Do not defraud your neighbor or rob him. Do not withhold money that you owe to someone who has worked for you. Do not curse a deaf person or put something that a blind person can trip on in front of them. That would be evil. Fear your Elohim. I am Yehovah. Do not twist justice. You cannot show favoritism to the poor or favoritism to the rich, but judge fairly. You cannot, let's say that a poor person goes to court against a rich person and you feel sorry for the poor person, even though they're the one who did wrong. You cannot accept and give favor to the poor person just because they're poor. And you also cannot, let's say a poor person and a rich person go to court against each other. You cannot side with the rich person because he says, I will pay you money if you agree with me. That is called perverting justice or twisting
If he doesn't
justice.
say that, and
Well, you have to listen and decide who is right by the facts.
What if you decide wrong?
Well, if you did it on accident and you didn't do it for, to get
No,
something.
what if there's a good guy and a bad guy, and they both, get the
one of
facts and
them's
stuff?
lying, yeah, and you believe accidentally the liar?
Mm-hmm.
That could happen, and you will not be held responsible for that. God will judge that. God will take care of that, because you couldn't determine. And then a lot of times when you cannot determine who's right and who's wrong, they just dismiss the case and say it's done. You guys we can't do anything because we don't have any facts. It's just your word against your word, and there's no witnesses, and we have no way of knowing. So they would take that kind of a case to the high priest, and he would cast lots before Yehovah to find out who was guilty. So he says, do not go about spreading slander. What does it mean to slander someone?
I don't know.
That would be like me saying, hey Evan, I heard that Hayden picks his nose. Now, I don't know whether Hayden picks his nose. I've never seen him do it, but someone told me, "Did you see that, Hayden? He picks his nose." And I went to somebody else and said, "Hey, man, Hayden picks his nose." Then that's slandering him, because I don't know whether it's a fact or not, and I'm just repeating it. You can get in trouble for that even today. They have laws in this country that if you say something about somebody that isn't true, you can be...
Or it's just not nice.
No. If it's true, you can say it. Maybe that doesn't mean you should. You can't get in trouble for slander if you say it and it's true. That doesn't mean you should say it. But if you say something that is untrue about somebody and it causes harm to their reputation, like everybody's going to think Hayden's a nose picker, even though it's not true. And whoever started that and whoever repeated it, they would have to pay you. So that's what it means by slander, saying something about somebody that is not true. Do not do anything that might cause danger to your neighbor's life, like putting a giant bear trap along the fence line, trying to trap something, and you just didn't think, oh, you know, my neighbor might actually be over here watering his yard, step on that and get crushed to death. You have to think. So he's saying, do not do anything stupid that would put someone else's life in danger by what you're doing. Do not hate your brother in your heart. Tell your neighbor that he has done wrong in straight words so that you will not share in his guilt. So if you find somebody doing something wrong, you must tell him, hey, you're doing wrong. You got to stand up. You can't just pretend like it didn't happen or you will share in his guilt. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against one of your people, but love your neighbor just like you love yourself. I am Yehovah. Why do you not need to seek revenge? Who takes revenge?
God.
God has revenge. God said, vengeance is mine. Don't you seek to repay each other for things that are done to you. That's not your job. Keep my decrees. Do not mate different kinds of animals. He's saying, do not try to take a dog and a cat and have them have sex together so that you can make a cat dog. I made cats and I made dogs. They are separate animals. Do not create an abomination, some weird, vile creature that should not exist in nature normally. Do not do that. That's.
Would it be the same thing if you, wouldn't it be the same thing if you, breed one type of dog and another type?
No, that's totally okay to do because they're both dogs. You can breed one type of dog with another type of dog to get a kind of mixture of two different kinds of dogs, that's fine. But he's saying that's a kind. A dog is a kind of animal. A cat is a kind of animal. He's saying do not mate two different kinds. He also says do not plant your field with two kinds of seed because they can mix and produce fruit that is good for nothing. And I didn't create that fruit naturally, so don't do that.
What if you just put them together and you get a tree where you can go to the same tree and get the both different kinds of fruits?
It doesn't actually work that way. It would mix together to create a new kind of fruit that is totally different than, let's say you tried to breed or, stick together an apple and a pear so that you could get a pearple. That is not a fruit that God created, and it's probably going to be disgusting, and it might even make you sick. So keep your pears and your apples separated. That's what he's saying.
Nothing's wrong with pears, nothing's wrong with apples.
Yes, we don't need flapples. Or plopples. Alright, so if a man has sex with a woman who is a slave girl that is promised to another man, but who has not been ransomed or given her freedom, then there must be punishment. Yet they are not to put him to death, because she has not been a freed person. The man, however, must bring a ram to the entrance of the tent of meeting for a guilt offering to Yehovah. With the ram of the guilt offering, the priest is to make atonement for him before the Lord, because he has committed a sin, and his sin will be forgiven. When you enter the land and plant any kind of fruit tree, regard its fruit as forbidden. For 3 years you are to consider that fruit forbidden. It must not be eaten. In the 4th year, all of its fruit will be holy and separate, and an offering of praise to Jehovah. But in the 5th year, you may eat its fruit. So this is when you enter the land of Israel and you start planting trees. You must give the tree a chance to bear fruit and get stronger and provide food on the ground for the ground to grow better, provide fruit on the ground for the animals to eat, provide fruit on the ground that falls off for the poor people to eat for 3 years. In the 4th year, all of the fruit of that tree belongs to Jehovah, and you have to take it to the temple, and it will go to the priests and the poor people. In the 5th year, all of that fruit from that tree is yours, except for the 10th part that you must offer to Jehovah, because he gave it to you. Do not eat any meat with blood in it. Do not practice divination or sorcery or magic. That's a big one. Do not practice trying to divine something. That means certain people will have this is the weirdest thing ever, but they will take some tea leaves and put them in a cup and drink the cup of tea, and then put the cup on the table upside down so that the tea leaves fall on the table, and they'll look at those tea leaves on the table and go, I see a message about the future from the tea leaves. That's called divination, trying to divine something, or they'll say they have all different kinds of ways of doing that. They think that they can tell the future. Sometimes late at night on TV, you'll even see people who will tell you, call me and give me $50 and I'll tell you what's going to happen in your future. That is called divination. It is an abomination, and you will be punished for that. Practicing sorcery, trying to do magic, is also punishable by death. Do not cut the hair at the sides of your head or clip off the edges of your beard. Now, he's not talking about don't cut your hair. He's talking about the Egyptians shaved their whole heads except for the top part. So they would have weird looking haircuts. He says, don't make yourself look weird. Give yourself a regular haircut. And they also like to shave off their whole beard and have just a little thing right here in the center that looks like a goat, because they worshiped goat gods. He says, don't do that. Either grow a beard or don't grow a beard, but don't shape it funny and make it weird like you're a goat. Do not cut your bodies for the dead, because a lot of people, when someone died, they would cut their bodies thinking that their strange god would accept their own blood for the person who died. Do not put tattoos on yourselves. I am Jehovah. That's one of the things you see all over the place now. There are some people who have every inch of their body is covered with a tattoo. Their whole body is covered with tattoos.
What are tattoos?
Those pictures on your skin that are there forever. They use a permanent ink with a pin, and there's a picture on your skin, and it does not ever come off. And so there are people.
What's bad about it?
What's bad about it? Well, he's saying, that's an excellent question. Why would that be bad to put a picture on your skin? Well, because the only thing that I can think of is that you are saying to God, I don't like the way you made my skin. I'm going to decorate it. And also because the pagan peoples of the world did that to their skin. They put all kinds of markings on their skin to make them, you were usually markings about the worship of their false gods. The picture of their goat god, or a picture of a symbol of their goat god, or something like that. God says, look, I made you to have beautiful, soft skin that is a certain color. Do not change it, because when you put pictures on your skin, you're going to start looking like all of those other people who worship false gods. You must be different and separate. So there are lots and lots of people out there in this world today who have either one little tattoo or a bunch of them, or have covered their whole bodies with tattoos.
Is it temporary?
No. Oh, there are temporary tattoos that you could get that would stay on there for like a week or something. But most tattoos are permanent. You can't get rid of them. So he says, do not degrade your daughter by making her a prostitute.
What does that mean?
A prostitute is someone who has sex for money. I don't know why someone would do that, but that's what pagans did sometimes. They said, hey, I've got this beautiful daughter, and I'll bet that a lot of men would like to have sex with her. I can charge money. That's what they would do. Now that's just sick and stupid. It says, observe my Sabbaths and have reverence, or keep my sanctuary special. I am Yehovah. Do not talk to people who try to speak to the dead, or you will be defiled by them. There are certain people...
Probably going to be speaking to the dead more than you.
They're going to be speaking to demons who are pretending to be dead people. That's usually what happens. Do not turn to people who seek out spirits to talk to spirits, because you will be defiled by them. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. Stand up when an old person comes into the room to show respect for the elderly, and revere your God. I am Yehovah. When an alien lives with you in your land, do not treat him badly. The alien living with you must be treated as one of your own native born. Love him as yourself, for you were aliens at one time in the land of Egypt. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. Do not use dishonest weights and measures. Use honest scales and honest weights. Keep all of my laws and my decrees and follow them. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. We already did talk about weights that were not correct, right? Mm-hmm. Where you would say, oh, you want to buy a pound of grapes? Well, here's a 1 pound weight. Put that on the scale, and then we'll fill up the other side of the scale until it balances, and that means you're getting 1 pound of grapes. Only the weight that you put on there was not 1 full pound. So they're not actually getting a full pound. They think they are, but you know better. You've actually made a weight that is just under a pound, because you think, if I can sell a whole bunch of almost pounds, that means that I'll have extra grapes to sell, and I can make more money. That's just being greedy and cheating people. You will be punished by Yehovah for that.
And people bring their own weights, and some of those are bad.
Yeah. So it says you gotta have honest weights and
it's
measures.
Almost impossible to get a real pound.
Yeah. And I'm sure that there were people who went shopping a lot and had their own little weights that they kept with them, because they knew that they were a true pound, and they would test the person they were buying from. And if the person they were buying from, he says, okay, there's your pound. I'd say, okay, I'm going to take off your 1 pound weight, and I'm going to take this one out of my pocket and put it on there, and all of a sudden the person who's selling to you eyes goes like this. Yeah. They know you're about to put a real pound on there, and all of a sudden it goes, you're trying to cheat me? Take out your sword. You're a thief. Trying to cheat me. You get punched in the face and your grapes get stolen. So, do not do any of those things. So that's it for today, folks. Some excellent instruction from our God. This is the basic instruction manual for how to live your life. And if you follow these basic instructions, you will live and you will prosper and God will bless you. But if you break them, you will die and you will be cursed and bad things will happen. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you for joining us today,
what
folks.
If the person that pulls out the real 1 pound weight isn't a real 1 pound weight?
Then he would be in trouble.
How do they know?
It's an excellent question. There would be an argument, and then they would have to call the police, and the police would show up with a real 1 pound weight and settle the argument. Yep, so there's always somebody who's got a real 1 pound weight. Thanks, folks. We'll see you next time. Have a good day.